Shalom. Many people believe expansion requires more effort, more hours, more pressure, more sacrifice. Torah reveals something different. Scale is not created by strain. It is created by leverage. The human mind gravitates toward effort. When results remain small, the immediate response is to work harder, push longer, apply more force. This pattern appears logical. More input should produce more output. Linear thinking creates linear expectations. Most business owners operate under this assumption. Revenue plateaus, so they extend their working hours. Projects stagnate, so they add more tasks to their schedule. Teams underperform, so they micromanage every detail. The effort increases. The strain intensifies. The results remain fundamentally unchanged. This creates a cultural mythology around effort. The person who works 80-hour weeks is admired. The entrepreneur who sacrifices sleep is celebrated. The parent who manages every aspect of their children's lives is praised. Strain is confused with dedication. Burnout is mistaken for commitment. The pattern is predictable. Effort increases, energy declines, results plateau. Intensity rises again. Nothing changes structurally. The effort assumption contains a hidden flaw. Human capacity operates within defined limits. Physical energy depletes. Mental focus deteriorates. Emotional reserves drain. Time remains fixed at 24 hours per day. No amount of willpower can transcend these structural boundaries. Yet people continue to believe that strain will eventually break through these limitations. They assume that sufficient pressure will bend reality to their will. They expect that unprecedented effort will produce unprecedented results. This expectation ignores the mathematical constraints of linear systems. Torah operates from a different foundation. It recognizes that sustainable expansion requires structural multiplication rather than personal intensification. The principle appears throughout the text in agricultural metaphors, economic structures, and leadership patterns. Seeds produce multiple fruits. Investments generate compound returns. Leaders develop other leaders who extend influence beyond individual reach. Creation itself operates through leverage. Light multiplies through reflection. Water multiplies through flow. Seed multiplies through structure. Nothing in creation expands through strain. It expands through multiplication. The false assumption emerges from a misunderstanding of power. Effort feels powerful because it creates immediate feedback. Muscles strain, and the body responds. Hours extend, and tasks get completed. Pressure increases, and people react. The connection between input and output appears direct and controllable. This sense of control becomes addictive. The person applying effort feels responsible for results. They experience agency over outcomes. Their actions produce visible consequences. The feedback loop reinforces the behavior even when the results remain insufficient for their goals. Effort also carries moral weight in most cultures. Hard work is virtuous. Struggle indicates character. Sacrifice demonstrates commitment. These values create emotional investment in the effort-based approach. Questioning the effectiveness of hard work feels like questioning fundamental moral principles. The moral dimension makes it difficult to recognize when effort becomes counterproductive. People continue straining even when results diminish. They interpret failure as insufficient effort rather than structural inefficiency. They increase intensity when they should restructure systems. This pattern appears in professional contexts constantly. Salespeople make more calls when conversion rates decline instead of improving their messaging. Managers schedule more meetings when communication breaks down instead of clarifying decision-making structures. Writers produce more content when engagement drops instead of understanding their audience better. Beyond a certain point, additional effort begins to reduce effectiveness. Fatigue impairs judgment. Stress decreases creativity. Overwhelm leads to mistakes. The person applying maximum effort may actually achieve less than someone operating at moderate intensity with better systems. Linear effort also fails to account for the compounding nature of results. Most valuable outcomes build over time through accumulated momentum rather than intense bursts of activity. Skills develop through regular practice rather than marathon training sessions. The effort mindset creates a time for money trap. Each result requires direct personal input. Income depends on hours worked. Impact relies on individual presence. Growth is constrained by personal capacity. This structure ensures that expansion will always hit a ceiling determined by human limitations. Torah presents leverage as the governing principle for sustainable expansion. Leverage multiplies impact beyond the limits of individual effort. It creates systems where initial input generates ongoing returns. It establishes structures that operate independently of constant personal management. The Hebrew concept of leverage appears in agricultural contexts. A single seed produces multiple fruits. Each fruit contains multiple seeds. The multiplication compounds over successive seasons. The farmer plants once, but harvests repeatedly. The initial effort gets amplified through natural systems that operate beyond human control. Economic leverage follows similar patterns. Capital invested in productive assets generates returns without constant management. Business systems operate during the owner's absence. Employees contribute value that exceeds their cost. Each component multiplies the impact of the original investment. Knowledge represents another form of leverage. Information learned once can be applied repeatedly. Skills developed in one context transfer to other situations. Principles understood deeply inform multiple decisions. Teaching others multiplies the impact of personal learning by extending it through other minds. Relationships create leverage through trust and reciprocity. A single conversation can influence multiple decisions over time. Reputation built through consistent behavior opens opportunities that would be impossible to create through direct effort. Networks amplify individual contributions by connecting them to resources and opportunities beyond personal reach. Systems thinking underlies all forms of leverage. Instead of focusing on individual actions, leverage identifies patterns that multiply impact. Instead of increasing personal effort, leverage improves the efficiency of existing structures. Instead of working within constraints, leverage changes the constraints themselves. Delegation represents a fundamental form of leverage often misunderstood in modern contexts. Proper delegation is not simply assigning tasks to avoid doing them personally. It is the strategic transfer of capacity to multiply total output. When delegation is structured correctly, the combined results exceed what any individual could accomplish alone. Effective delegation requires clear communication of desired outcomes rather than specific methods. It establishes accountability systems that ensure results without micromanagement. It provides the authority necessary to make decisions along with the responsibility for results. This structure allows multiple people to operate at full capacity simultaneously. Technology creates unprecedented leverage opportunities. Automated systems handle routine tasks without human intervention. Communication tools reach multiple people simultaneously. Information platforms make knowledge accessible beyond the limitations of physical presence. Digital assets generate value continuously without direct supervision. The multiplication principle appears in teaching and education. A teacher who develops curriculum impacts every student who learns from it. A mentor who trains other mentors multiplies their influence exponentially. A parent who establishes family systems creates patterns that extend across generations. The initial investment in structure pays returns far beyond the original effort. Financial markets demonstrate leverage through compound returns. Money invested in appreciating assets grows without additional input. Diversified portfolios reduce risk while maintaining growth potential. Passive income streams provide returns during periods of rest or other activities. The initial capital works continuously to generate additional value. Creative work offers leverage through intellectual property. A song written once can be performed repeatedly. A book authored once can be read by unlimited readers. A design created once can be manufactured multiple times. The creative effort gets amplified through reproduction and distribution systems. Leverage requires initial structure building that may feel like additional effort. Creating systems takes time. Training others requires patience. Developing processes demands careful thought. This upfront investment often deters people who expect immediate results from their efforts. The delay between leverage creation and leverage returns tests most people's patience. Systems need time to operate. Relationships require trust building. Skills transfer through practice. During this period, traditional effort may appear more productive because it generates immediate feedback. However, leverage compounds over time while effort plateaus. The person who builds systems experiences accelerating returns. The individual who relies on effort faces diminishing returns. The gap between these approaches widens with time until the difference becomes dramatic. Leverage appears in every domain governed by law. Resources structured correctly multiply. People aligned correctly multiply. Ideas positioned correctly multiply. Structure determines scale. Time allocation leverages through automation and delegation. Instead of performing every task personally, effective operators identify which activities require their unique skills and systematize everything else. They use technology to handle routine communications. They train others to manage standard procedures. They focus personal attention on high-value decisions that cannot be automated. Influence leverages through reputation and trust building. Rather than persuading each person individually, influential people establish credibility that precedes them into new situations. They create content that communicates their ideas to multiple audiences simultaneously. They develop relationships with other influential people who extend their reach through their own networks. Educational leverage occurs through teaching others to teach. Instead of personally instructing every student, master teachers develop curriculum and train instructors. They create learning systems that operate without their direct involvement. They establish schools and institutions that continue their educational mission beyond their personal capacity. Skill development leverages through focusing on fundamental principles that apply across multiple contexts. Rather than learning countless specific techniques, effective learners identify underlying patterns that inform all situations. They develop general capabilities that transfer to new challenges. They build learning systems that accelerate future skill acquisition. These applications require a different mindset than effort-based approaches. Instead of asking how to work harder, leverage thinking asks how to work smarter. Instead of increasing personal input, leverage seeks to multiply the impact of existing input. Instead of accepting constraints, leverage changes the game entirely. Leverage is not laziness. This misinterpretation assumes that working through systems indicates unwillingness to work directly. Proper leverage requires significant effort to establish and maintain. The difference lies in where the effort is applied. Instead of repetitive task execution, leverage effort goes into system creation and optimization. Building leverage often requires more initial work than direct effort approaches. Creating training materials takes longer than doing tasks personally. Establishing automated systems requires more setup time than manual processes. Developing others demands patience that immediate task completion does not require. The leverage mindset also demands higher-level thinking skills. System design requires understanding relationships between components. Delegation requires clear communication and expectation setting. Automation requires process analysis and optimization. These capabilities must be developed before leverage becomes possible. Leverage is not manipulation. This misunderstanding assumes that working through others or systems involves deception or unfair advantage. Proper leverage creates value for all participants. Employees gain skills and income through delegation. Customers receive better service through automated systems. Students learn more effectively through well-designed educational leverage. Manipulation seeks personal benefit at others' expense. Leverage creates mutual benefit through improved systems. The person applying leverage succeeds because others succeed. The systems work because they serve everyone involved. The multiplication benefits all participants rather than extracting value from them. Ethical leverage requires transparency about how systems operate. People should understand their role and benefit from participation. Systems should be designed to serve user needs rather than merely extract value. The multiplier effect should create genuine value rather than simply redistributing existing resources. Leverage requires structure. Random efforts to avoid direct work do not constitute true leverage. Effective leverage depends on carefully designed systems that reliably produce desired outcomes. These structures must be built, tested, refined, and maintained to function properly. Structural requirements include clear processes that others can follow, standard procedures that produce consistent results, communication systems that maintain coordination, feedback mechanisms that identify problems early, accountability structures that ensure results meet standards. Without proper structure, attempted leverage often produces worse results than direct effort. Poorly trained employees make costly mistakes. Inadequate systems create confusion and delays. Unclear communication leads to misaligned efforts. The overhead of managing broken leverage systems exceeds the cost of working directly. Therefore, leverage development follows predictable stages. First, master the direct approach to understand what good results look like. Second, document the successful process so others can follow it. Third, train others to execute the process reliably. Fourth, establish systems to monitor and improve results. Fifth, optimize the structure for maximum multiplication. Each stage requires patience and investment before returns become apparent. Most people abandon leverage development during these preparation phases because immediate results appear slower than direct effort. However, persistence through the development process creates exponential improvements in long-term effectiveness. The governing law operates with mathematical certainty. Leverage multiplies impact beyond the limits of effort. This principle functions regardless of personal beliefs or preferences. Systems that properly apply leverage will outperform effort-based approaches over sufficient time periods. Recognition of this law changes strategic thinking fundamentally. Instead of asking how much effort to apply, the question becomes how to structure multiplication. Instead of accepting capacity limitations, the focus shifts to expanding capability through systems. Instead of linear planning, development becomes exponential thinking. Individual effort peaks at personal capacity limits. One person can work only so many hours, manage only so many tasks, influence only so many people directly. These constraints are absolute regardless of talent, dedication, or intensity. Leverage transcends these limits by operating through multiplication rather than addition. Systems multiply input rather than simply adding to it. Other people multiply capacity rather than merely assisting with tasks. Compound returns multiply wealth rather than just accumulating savings. The mathematical reality ensures that leverage-based approaches will eventually surpass effort-based approaches in every domain where both are possible. The timing depends on the specific context and quality of implementation, but the outcome remains inevitable given sufficient persistence. Effort reaches its limit at the boundary of the individual. Leverage ignores the boundary. This is not philosophy, it is structure. Multiplication will always overtake addition given sufficient time. The only question is whether a person aligns with the law. Leverage determines scale, effort determines strain, structure decides the future.